The first time Emma noticed the quiet tension at home, she didn't understand it. The little girl, just 7, sat cross-legged on the kitchen floor, tracing circles on the worn wooden surface with her tiny fingers. The morning sun slanted through the half-open blinds, painting stripes of light across her worried face. She peeked at her mother, who stood by the stove, her hands shaking slightly as she stirred the coffee, muttering under her breath. Emma had learned early that her mother's silence was often more frightening than any words. "Emma, stop staring and finish your breakfast," her mother snapped, the tone sharper than intended. It was a habitual reaction. Stress spilling over, the weight of single parenthood pressing down in quiet, invisible layers. Emma flinched, nodding quickly, her spoon rattling against the plate. A tear slipped down her cheek and she wiped it hastily, hoping her mother wouldn't notice. She knew better than to make a fuss. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. Cars hummed, dogs barked, and the faint scent of blooming flowers drifted in from the small backyard. Emma loved watching those flowers, imagining herself in a world where everyone smiled, where laughter filled the rooms, and her tiny mistakes didn't become reasons for sharp words or sighs. But reality was different. Reality meant soft whimpers swallowed in the bathroom, scribbled drawings hidden under the bed, and whispered prayers that someone, anyone, would notice her sadness. Meanwhile, her mother, Grace, was oblivious to the little girl's silent suffering. Life had been hard for Grace, raising Emma alone after her husband left years ago, balancing 2 jobs, unpaid bills, and a sense of failure that clung to her like a shadow. She didn't want to hurt Emma, but her exhaustion often translated into impatience. The guilt gnawed at her, but there was no time to pause, no space to think. And Emma, with her quiet resilience, bore the brunt of it without a word. Then came the sound of the front door, a sudden click that echoed in the small, tense house. Emma froze mid-bite, her heart racing in a way that felt both hopeful and frightening. Grace turned sharply, expecting a delivery or perhaps a neighbor dropping by. But what she saw was a man, tall, impeccably dressed, eyes scanning the room with a mixture of worry and recognition. For a moment, time seemed suspended. Emma's breath caught, the spoon slipping from her fingers. "Emma," the man asked softly, his voice calm yet commanding, the kind that made the room feel lighter. He stepped closer and the little girl's eyes widened. It had been years since she had last seen him, the father who had vanished without warning, leaving only memories and unanswered questions behind. Now here he was, standing in the doorway like a silent promise, his presence filling the space with tension, hope, and an unspoken question. Could he fix what had been broken? The air between them pulsed with unspoken history, the weight of past decisions heavy on every wordless glance. Emma felt a flicker of hope, a tiny spark that maybe, just maybe, things could change. The tension of mornings filled with fear, silence, and subtle pain was about to meet a force neither of them expected. The return of a father who had been gone for too long, and the promise that love, even after heartbreak, could still find its way home. Emma barely dared to breathe. She clutched the edge of the table as the man, her father, stepped into the kitchen. His eyes scanned her mother, lingering on the lines of worry etched deep in Grace's face. He seemed almost impossibly composed, yet there was a flicker of pain in his gaze, a quiet acknowledgement of years lost, of promises broken, and of the invisible scars left on his daughter. Emma's small heart raced with conflicting feelings, curiosity, fear, and a cautious flicker of hope. "Emma, do you remember me?" he asked gently, his voice barely above a whisper, yet it carried an authority that made the room hold still. Emma nodded, unable to speak. Her throat felt tight and tears threatened to spill again. She remembered fragments of laughter, bedtime stories, and warm hugs. Moments so fleeting they felt like dreams. Her mother stiffened beside her, arms crossed, a shield of frustration and protection. Grace's voice broke the tension, tinged with unease. "Why are you here after all these years?" The question wasn't angry. It was cautious, wary. 1,000 thoughts flashed behind her eyes. Anger, relief, disbelief, and a faint glimmer of longing she refused to acknowledge. The father's gaze softened. I needed to see Emma, to see how she's doing, and to try to make things right." His words carried weight, a sincerity that resonated even in Grace's skeptical mind. Emma stepped closer, drawn by the warmth in his eyes. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice small but hopeful. The word hung in the air like a delicate bridge across years of separation. Grace's face tightened with emotion, the unspoken tension between past mistakes and present reality pressing down on her shoulders. Emma's tiny hand reached toward her father, and for a brief, fragile moment, it felt like the world had stopped outside that little kitchen. But silence was fragile. Grace struggled with a surge of conflicting emotions, resentment at abandonment, guilt over her harshness, and a tentative hope that maybe this man could help mend what had been broken. The father noticed her hesitation but didn't push. Instead, he focused on Emma, kneeling to meet her at eye level, letting her feel the unwavering presence of someone who loved her unconditionally. "Do you want to tell me what's been bothering you?" he asked softly. Emma blinked, unsure if she could reveal the years of hurt she had swallowed silently. But the sincerity in his tone coaxed the truth out of her. "Mom, I try not to make mistakes," she admitted, her voice quivering. "But I cry, and I'm scared sometimes." A tear rolled down her cheek, and she hastily wiped it away, ashamed of her vulnerability. The father reached out, gently taking her hand in his. His touch was warm, reassuring, and safe. Emma felt a flicker of something she hadn't dared hope for in years. Understanding. Grace exhaled slowly, her arms uncrossing, the tension in her shoulders easing fractionally. It was a quiet, tentative truce, the first step toward healing, though the path ahead remained uncertain. The morning light no longer felt warm. It seemed heavy, carrying the weight of unspoken words and buried emotions. Emma's father watched her carefully, sensing the layers of pain hidden behind her small frame. She fidgeted with the hem of her shirt, her tiny hands trembling. Grace stood nearby, arms folded, the air between them taut with unresolved tension. The quiet was broken only by the ticking of the old kitchen clock, each second stretching like a thread of anticipation. "You know," he began gently, "I wasn't there for you, and I know I can't erase that. But I want to understand. What made you feel so alone?" Emma's lips quivered, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Mom," she yells, "sometimes hits me when I make mistakes," she admitted in a voice so small it almost dissolved into the room. Her confession was raw, innocent, and heartbreaking. Her father's chest tightened at the words, but he kept his tone calm. He knew anger wouldn't heal anything. Only understanding and presence could. Grace flinched at Emma's words, her hand tightening around the edge of the counter. The truth, spoken aloud, cut through the fog of denial she had wrapped herself in. "I didn't mean to," she whispered, voice cracking. She wanted to apologize, but guilt and pride wrestled within her. The father stepped closer, gently placing a hand on Grace's shoulder. "I know you're tired, Grace, but Emma needs us, both of us. To be patient and present," he said softly. His words weren't accusatory. They were a lifeline, a bridge over years of distance. Emma watched the exchange, hope flickering like a candle in a storm. She had longed for this moment, imagining it countless times, though she had almost given up hope. And yet, the subtle tension reminded her that forgiveness and healing would take courage from everyone involved. Her father knelt once more to her level. "Emma," he said softly, "it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel scared. I'm here now, and I won't leave you again." His presence radiated a stability she had never known before, a security that had been missing for years. A sudden sound broke the fragile peace, the school bus's distant horn. Emma jumped slightly, realizing she would soon have to face the world again. Her mother's eyes softened, glistening with unshed tears. The father gently suggested, "Let's walk together to the bus stop. All three of us. Today we start over." It was simple yet monumental. For the first time in years, the family would move forward together, however cautiously. But as they stepped outside, the little girl stopped, glancing at her mother. "Mom, will you promise not to hurt me again?" she asked, voice trembling. Grace's eyes brimmed with tears. She knelt down, hugging Emma tightly. "I promise, my sweet girl. I'll try my hardest. I love you more than anything." The father watched, his chest tight with emotion, knowing that this small vow was the pivot, the moment where past pain began to dissolve, replaced by cautious hope. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of fresh flowers from the garden. It was as if the world itself acknowledged this turning point. The father's return, the child's courage to speak, and the mother's acceptance of her mistakes, all converging in a quiet, poignant moment that would change the course of their lives. The afternoon sun dipped low, casting golden light across the small garden where Emma, Grace, and her father stood together. Emma clutched her father's hand, and for the first time in years she felt safe. The world outside the walls of their home seemed to pause, holding its breath as the family faced a moment long overdue. A convergence of guilt, love, and forgiveness. Grace took a shaky breath, stepping closer to her daughter and the man who had once vanished from their lives. "Emma, I know I hurt you. More than I ever realized," he said, her voice breaking. Tears streamed freely now unrestrained. Emma's father gently rested a hand on Grace's back, his presence steady, reassuring, silently telling her it was okay to feel, to cry, to start over. The little girl looked up, hope mingling with apprehension in her eyes, unsure if this reunion could truly bridge the years of absence and pain. "Emma," her father said softly, kneeling to meet her gaze, "you've been so strong, holding everything inside. I'm sorry I left, and I promise I'm here now, always." His words hung in the air, sincere and unwavering. Emma's small hands reached for his face, brushing away a tear that had fallen unnoticed. The connection was instantaneous, electric, a bond reforged in the silence of unspoken understanding. Suddenly, Emma's mother joined in, wrapping both of them in a warm embrace. It was fragile at first, but then steady, unyielding, a hug that carried years of apology, longing, and love. Emma's sobs mingled with the tears of her parents, creating a symphony of relief, reconciliation, and shared humanity. The tension that had gripped the house for so long began to dissolve, replaced by an overwhelming sense of togetherness. For a moment, none of them spoke. They simply held one another, the quiet punctuated only by the distant chirping of birds and the rustling leaves. Grace whispered, "I'll do better, Emma. I promise." Her daughter clung tighter, the first genuine smile lighting her face in what felt like an eternity. Her father stroked her hair gently, silently pledging to protect this newfound harmony. Then came a simple gesture. Emma handed her mother a small drawing she had hidden under her pillow for months, a picture of the three of them smiling together. Grace gasped softly, overwhelmed by the symbolism and love poured into the simple sketch. "You made this for us?" she asked, her voice choked. Emma nodded shyly, eyes bright with hope. "I wanted us to be happy," she whispered. The father smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's face. "This is the beginning, Emma, not the end. From today, everything can change, together." The words resonated deeply, not just in the hearts of the family, but in the very air around them. The world outside had not changed, but within the walls of their home a small miracle had taken place. Brokenness had met compassion, guilt had met forgiveness, and the family, against the odds, had begun to heal. As the sun sank behind the horizon, their shadows stretched long across the garden, intertwining and inseparable. It was more than a reunion. It was a rebirth. Emma laughed softly, a sound she hadn't allowed herself in years. Grace held her close, and the father's hand rested firmly on both of them, grounding them in a reality that was finally brighter, warmer, and filled with love.